Revealed. The incredible moment a millionaire discovered a life-changing balance of $1 million. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting golden light on Jack Thompson as he dug through the dusty memories of his grandfather's attic. The musty smell of old wood enveloped him, each breath stirring a cocktail of nostalgia and melancholy. Then, just as his hands brushed against a battered box, he had no idea his life was about to alter infinitely. Inside the box were letters that told stories of heartache, courage, and love. Jack's fingers trembled as he uncovered a crinkled bank statement buried under a yellowing envelope. $1 million, a number so grand it sent his head spinning like the gears in his father's garage. Jack felt a tightness in his chest. He wasn't just a mechanic with oil-stained hands anymore. He was a millionaire now, on paper at least. He hurried home, the revelation bubbling in his thoughts, the world outside morphing into a blur. His heart raced. This was huge. What could this mean for his wife, Sarah, and their kids, Lucy and Sam? The family spent evenings at the kitchen table, a place of laughter but also whispered worries about bills and school supplies. This unexpected windfall could wash away their anxieties, and he envisioned a future brightened by opportunity. Yet as Jack shared the news, excitement turned to apprehension. His small town buzzed with whispers. Friends and neighbors, once close-knit companions, looked at him differently. Dollar signs glinted in their eyes, selfish desires lurking beneath the surface. They were not the same friends who lent him tools or shared barbecue recipes anymore. They wanted a taste of this fortune, and it sent a chill down Jack's spine. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every kind-hearted thought, Jack found the stares of his friends growing heavier. He felt the weight of his grandfather's legacy, a man who believed deeply in the power of community and shared dreams. Jack's heart ached as he saw his neighbors struggling, with the school at risk of closure and storefronts shuttered. He envisioned a better Maplewood, a brighter school for Lucy and Sam, support for families like his own. But was he brave enough to step forward? Jack stood at a precipice, the pressure mounting as he faced questions that muddied his heart. Was he wrong to want to help? Would it be betrayal to enjoy any bit of this newfound wealth when others were suffering? Or was the true meaning of riches found in how it could uplift those around him? Just as he embraced this turmoil, fate threw one last curveball: a sudden crisis in Maplewood that threatened to rip the community apart. The whispers grew louder, confusion ran rampant, and parents clutched their children tightly, fear written on their faces. Jack braced himself, the uncertainty crackling in the air. Now more than ever, he had to decide. Was he going to protect himself or step into a legacy much grander than money? The storm had risen, and he could feel the current pulling him toward an unknown destiny. The wind swept through Maplewood, carrying with it the anxious murmurs of the townspeople. Jack stood at the center of it all, the bank statement seared in his mind. $1 million. A fortune, yes, but with it, a heavy burden had settled across his shoulders. This was no longer just a number. It was a choice that could ripple through the lives of everyone he loved. As news of the town's crisis spread, people began to gather at the old community center. A place that had once been filled with laughter, now felt haunted by worry and uncertainty. Jack could see the lines etched deep into the faces of his neighbors. The worry in their eyes reflected concerns that weighed heavily on his own chest. He walked through the crowd, nodding at familiar faces, but their gazes were laden with expectations. "Jack, you could really help us all out," an old friend called, his voice shaky. "If you could just, invest or something. We need it now more than ever." The words hung in the air, thick with hope and desperation. Jack felt a pang in his heart. He understood their plight. Every dollar he possessed could mean the difference between a thriving future and despair. But could he really be responsible for how it was spent? What if it changed things forever? He spotted Sarah in the crowd, her eyes reflecting both pride and anxiety. As she approached him, he felt a swell of emotion. "Jack, we need to talk," she said softly, grabbing his hand. I've heard the whispers. We're a family, but this is a lot to process. We need to be careful. Jack took a deep breath, grasping for clarity amidst the chaos. I want to help, Sarah, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But what if it backfires? What if we lose everything? What if we don't try? She countered, her voice firm yet compassionate. We can make a real impact. This town, it matters. And we matter too. The sincerity in her eyes ignited a flicker of determination within him. He envisioned the kids growing up in a Maplewood that thrived, a community where dreams could flourish instead of fade. But the road ahead was steep, filled with risks. As the meeting in the community center began, Jack stepped to the forefront, his heart pounding. He shared his vision, spoke of collaborating to uplift the struggling families and businesses. He saw hopeful glimmers in the eyes of his fellow citizens, but fear mingled with excitement. The challenge would be immense, but so was the reward. But before he could fully absorb the weight of his decision, a young mother stood, her face pale with fear. What if we can't trust each other? She blurted out. How do we know this will truly help? The room fell silent. Jack felt the collective tension, a thread of doubt woven into the community fabric. Trust, Jack found himself saying, his voice steadier than he felt. It's the foundation we either build or break. We can't walk this path alone. The palpable energy in the room shifted. His choice had set a significant process in motion, one that brought both hope and uncertainty. He could feel eyes on him, waiting, weighing his next move. As the meeting concluded, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. This was just the beginning. But in the back of his mind, a nagging question throbbed with every heartbeat. Would they truly be able to come together, or would the fractures within their community deepen? And more importantly, could he really lead them into a brighter future? Or was he setting himself up for failure? The storm was still brewing, and Jack could feel it. The true test was yet to come. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Jack maneuvered through his routine with a sense of unease, knowing the weight of the decision that hung over Maplewood like a storm cloud. Coffee shop chatter turned to discussions about his vision. As he passed the bakery, the sweetest scent of pastries mixed with the sharpness of anxiety in the air. He heard snippets of conversations. Jack might just save us mixed with murmurs of doubt. It was disconcerting, like walking on a tightrope with no safety net. On the third evening post-meeting, Jack stood in his backyard, the moon casting a silver glow over everything. The garden, once vibrant and full of life, seemed drained. He leaned against the fence, fingers fidgeting with the bank statement crumpled in his pocket. Sarah came up quietly behind him, not wanting to disturb his thoughts. Yet Jack could feel her presence as strong as the air around him. Are you okay? She asked gently, placing a warm hand on his shoulder. He sighed, a heavy, weary sound that hung in the air. I just keep thinking, what if I've made a mistake? What if all this leads to more trouble? The only mistake is not trying, Sarah said, squeezing his arm. Remember what we talked about. Change is hard, but it's also necessary. You're not carrying this alone. We're all in it together. Her words were a balm, offering comfort wrapped in strength. Jack allowed himself to visualize what could happen if the plan succeeded. A bustling main street filled with families, laughter echoing from parks, children dreaming bigger than the small town's borders. But his reverie was interrupted when a sharp knock rode the wind. Jack and Sarah exchanged puzzled glances. Who could that be? She whispered. As Jack opened the door, he was met with a pair of familiar faces, Mrs. Johnson and Mr. Rivera, stalwarts of the town, both looking flushed and urgent. Jack, Mrs. Johnson started, her voice shaky, we need to talk. It's about the meeting. What about the meeting? Jack asked, concern flooding in. Mr. Rivera stepped forward, his brow furrowed. There are rumors, Jack. People are worried. Some think you might not have the answers. There's talk of splitting up. Some want to leave Maplewood. The air thickened, and Jack felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Possible splits within the community. He had envisioned unity. And yet here stood the possibility of fracture. No, wait, can't we talk this through? He pleaded, desperation clawing at him. We're trying, Mr. Rivera replied, a hint of anger creasing his features. But people are scared. There's too much uncertainty. And if trust is shaken now, Jack nodded slowly, feeling the gravity of their words penetrate deep into his heart. He had become the figurehead of hope, but now uncertainty was fanning the flames of fear. Okay. Let us call a town meeting. Tonight, Jack said decisively. He could feel the flicker of determination returning. We can't hide from this. We need to face it together. As night fell, they gathered once again at the community center. This time, Jack stepped forward, feeling the eyes of the town on him, heavy with expectation and apprehension. He cleared his throat, his heart racing faster than before. I know things feel shaky right now. I'm feeling it too. A collective gasp followed, but he pressed on. But I believe we can do this. We owe it to ourselves and to Maplewood. The room buzzed with tension. Jack's voice dipped low, but he held steady. What if we shared our fears tonight? What if, instead of running, we built something stronger? Together. His words hung in the air, echoing with the weight of vulnerability. For the first time, fear transformed into a flicker of hope among the townspeople. It was just the glimmer of a chance, but sometimes all it takes is a flickering candle to light up the dark. That was when a voice broke through, one that shook the wall of unease. What if we made a pact, Jack? It was a youthful voice, one of the teenagers from the town, who stepped forward, eyes wide with determination. What if we promised to trust each other, no matter what? A collective murmur swept through the gathering. Trust had to start somewhere, didn't it? Jack felt the heat of hope rekindle inside him. Could this truly be the spark they needed? Could they conquer their doubts and rise together? The question lingered in the air, and with it, the realization that the real battle was just beginning. Would they follow through? Or would fear snuff out the light before it could grow? Jack scanned the room, feeling the weight of their gazes on him. The energy was shifting. Uncertainty was being replaced by hesitation, which flickered like a candle in the wind. Could they forge a bond strong enough to withstand the storm ahead? He wanted to believe it was possible. Trust is more than just a word, he continued, finding his footing. It's a commitment. If we can promise to lean on each other, then maybe we can find a way forward. Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. He could see some faces begin to soften, as if the air in the room had lightened just a touch. Jack took a deep breath, his pulse quickening. Let us talk about what we're afraid of. What does fear look like for each of us? An older man in the back stood up, his hands shaking slightly. I've lived in Maplewood for 30 years. I fear losing the only home I've ever known. His voice trembled but carried a weight of shared experience. I worry that this plan of yours, it could destroy us. Jack felt a pang of empathy. Here was a man whose roots ran deep, just like his own. I hear you, Jack replied softly, his gaze steady. But what if we lose ourselves by not trying? What if the fear of change chains us down? A murmur of agreement escaped from others in the room, emboldening Jack. He glanced at Sarah, who smiled reassuringly, her eyes sparkling with pride. A woman from the front row chimed in. I worry about the younger generation. They'll leave Maplewood in search of opportunity if we don't offer them something that keeps them here. Jack nodded, energized by her openness. Then let us make Maplewood a place they want to stay. Let us give them projects, jobs, opportunities, the things that ignite passion. The words rolled off his tongue, fueled by conviction. As they continued discussing their fears, another voice rang out, a teenager named Mia. But how do we know we can trust each other? She asked, courageously adding, what if someone breaks that pact? The question hung heavy in the air, and Jack felt the collective tension re-emerging. It was a valid concern. Trust had to be earned. That's the risk we all take, he said finally. But we owe it to ourselves to at least try. Maybe we can start small, commit to open discussions and accountability. A tentative thumbs up from Mia sent a ripple of hope through the room again. As the night progressed, people shared fears and dreams, some wiping away tears, others laughing in relief. The fear of division slowly transformed into a camaraderie that felt almost tangible. By the time the meeting wrapped up, Jack noticed something he hadn't expected. Unity was building. As they filed out, a sense of purpose filled the community center. The air crackled with newfound energy, as if they had lit a spark that could light up the darkest corners of Maplewood. But just as Jack stepped outside, a chill breeze swept through the gathering crowd. Something deep within him felt unsettled. It was too peaceful, Too quiet. We need more than just words, he murmured, catching Sarah's eye. We need action. And fast, she replied. Before fear creeps back in. Just then, the unmistakable sound of tires squealed down the main road caught their attention. Jack turned to see a car skid to a stop in front of the community center, doors flying open. An unfamiliar figure stumbled out. Panic etched across their face. Jack. The person shouted, rushing toward him. There's something you need to know. It's about the plan. It's not just whispers anymore. People are coming to Maplewood, and they're not friendly. Jack's heart raced, and dread coiled in his stomach. What was happening now? Just as he thought they could overcome their fears, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Would the promise of unity be enough to withstand this unexpected storm? Jack's gaze locked onto the newcomer, tension thickening the air around them. What do you mean, not friendly? He asked, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing in his mind. The girl was breathless, her chest heaving. I was out near the old train depot. Some strangers are hanging around business suits, not the kind of folks we see in Maplewood. They were talking about plans. Plans? Sarah repeated, her brow furrowing. Yeah, like buying up property, pushing people out. She paused, collecting her thoughts while Jack exchanged worried glances with Sarah. I didn't stick around long enough to hear everything, but they're serious. They could ruin everything you just talked about tonight. A lump formed in Jack's throat. Just when they were starting to build something, the foundations were teetering. Why would they want to come here? He murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Who knows? The girl exclaimed, exasperated. But they're talking like they own this town already. I thought maybe they were scouting for land or something. Like they wanted to turn it into profit. Jack felt a rush of anger and fear coursing through him. He had seen the struggle of Maplewood firsthand. The slow decline of the community felt like a wound that only grew deeper. We can't let them do that, he said fiercely, his resolution hardening. We must let everyone know. People need to understand what's at stake. I'll get my friends, Mia replied, determination dancing in her eyes. We'll spread the word. We can't let anyone catch us off guard. Okay, Jack said. Let us do it. Together, they began gathering the remaining folks from the community center that had yet to leave. Jack could see the worry knitting their brows, but he also saw resolve setting in their jaws. They had found a little light before, and now it felt as if shadows threatened to swallow it whole. Listen up, everyone. Jack raised his voice, commanding attention. We just got some news about people coming into Maplewood. They have plans that could change everything we talked about tonight. Gasps echoed through the crowd. We can't just stand by and let them take what's ours, he continued, urgency in his tone. We must unite again, stronger than before. We need to create a plan ourselves, one to protect our homes, our lives. Most nodded in agreement, but a few faces bore signs of fear. What if it's too late? One elderly woman whispered. Jack stepped forward, his voice unwavering. It's never too late. We fight for what we love. This isn't just about property. This is about our community, our families. We can stand together against anything if we trust each other. The energy shifted again, pulling them closer. They began to form circles of dialogue and ideas, chatter igniting with purpose. Jack felt the pressure release slightly, knowing that a plan was forming amidst the unease. As the group dispersed to begin their preparations, Jack caught Sarah's eye. They didn't have the luxury of time. But they were no longer just a loose collection of individuals, they were beginning to act like a family. But within all the camaraderie, unease festered. While the others shared their thoughts, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this new threat was just the surface of something much deeper. He wanted to know what truly lay behind the stranger's intentions. Just as he turned to voice his concerns, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the old train depot, sending a chill through the crowd. Jack. A voice called out through the chaos. It's happening. They're making their move now. All at once, Jack's heart raced anew as uncertainty gripped him tight. Would their unity and their spirit be enough to confront the storm that was rushing toward them? Jack's instincts kicked in. He raced toward the sound of panic, pushing through the crowd that started to swirl around him like a tornado of confusion. People were murmuring, casting anxious glances in the direction of the depot, their faces painted with fear. What's going on? He barked, urgency spilling from his voice. Mia sprinted up beside him, her face flushed with terror. "I don't know. I think they're at the depot," she shouted back, her eyes wide as they caught the distant flicker of lights and shadows. Jack focused ahead, heart pounding. He could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. It wasn't just his fight or Sarah's or Mia's. It was the fight of everyone in Maplewood. The town had been through too much to let it all be swept away now. As they neared the entrance of the old train depot, a figure burst out of the doorway. It was a man in a crisp suit, his face hard and cold as he surveyed the small gathering that had formed. He held a briefcase tightly in one hand, his other arm raised like he was ready to issue orders. "Everyone, step back," he barked, projecting authority like a wall, pushing against the rising fear. "This is private property now." "Private property?" Jack echoed incredulously. "You think you can just waltz in and take what is into yours? We won't let you." "You don't understand," the man shot back, contempt flashing in his eyes. "This town is part of a much larger plan. Best for everyone if you just cooperate." Jack felt anger surge through him. Behind him, murmurs of defiance erupted from the crowd. The people of Maplewood had suffered enough. They couldn't just fold without a fight, and Jack knew that. They needed to stand firm, to show that they would not be intimidated. "Are you serious?" Sarah cried out, stepping up next to Jack, her fists clenched. "You think you can push us out without consequences? We've been here for generations. This doesn't concern you," the man sneered. "This is about progress." "Progress?" Jack's voice rose, filled with disbelief. "You're talking about ripping families apart. That's not progress. We'll make sure this town stands strong." Just then, another crash echoed through the depot. A second figure appeared behind the man, a woman in another business suit, her smile chilling like ice. She joined him, and out of nowhere, security guards emerged from the shadows, their presence a stark reminder of the tension thickening in the air. "Actually," the woman said, her tone dripping with condescension, "this is about what's necessary for Maplewood's future. You can either embrace it or face the consequences." Jack's stomach dropped. It felt like they were confronting a tidal wave. He looked at Mia, and he could see in her eyes that fear was threatening to swallow them whole. The anger, too, but also a kind of vulnerability that stung. "All right," he shouted, taking a stand. "If it's a fight you want, it's a fight we'll give you. We're stronger together, and we won't let you destroy our home." The crowd rallied behind Jack, voices rising in unison, united against the looming threat. Jack felt the pulse of their desperation, their drive for change tightening around him. But just as hope surged, a shout rang from the side. "Look out!" A small group of people rushed forward, headed straight for the suit-clad intruders. It was chaos, and Jack knew instinctively this wasn't just a protest, it was a declaration of war over what Maplewood would become. "Jack!" someone shouted. "What do we do now?" Caught in the eye of the storm, Jack's mind raced. They were at a crucial point. Every decision mattered. He took a breath, scanning the faces around him. Each one held fear, hope, and resolve. Just as he was about to respond, a new sound echoed in the distance, louder than ever, a siren blaring ominously, growing closer. In that moment, Jack realized everything was about to escalate. "Hold your ground," he shouted, knowing that the moment of truth was fast approaching. What would it take to stand their ground? Would their strength be enough when the storm arrived? The siren's wail sliced through the tension, making the crowd tense and turn wildly. Jack's heart raced as he scanned the faces around him, each one reflecting fear mixed with determination. The tension was palpable. People were ready to defend their home. Yet uncertainty hung like a heavy fog. "Jack." Mia's voice quivered. "What if they really are dangerous?" "They're just bullies with a briefcase," he reassured her, though doubt flickered in his mind. "We have to show them we won't back down." The suits exchanged glances, a mixture of disdain and surprise at the small-town resilience laid bare before them. The woman in the icy smile leaned closer to the man, whispering something. Their eyes flicked back to the crowd, and Jack felt the weight of their gaze like a warning. Just then the guards surged forward, flanking their employers, and Jack felt his stomach drop. No turning back now. "Everyone," Jack called, raising a hand. "We need to stay together." This isn't just about us, this is about our families, our future. He could feel a ripple of courage spreading through the crowd. Voices rose in agreement, fierce and proud echoes of defiance. Suddenly, another crash echoed from the depot, shifting the focus. Jack turned quickly, squinting into the night. A small group of his neighbors, a mix of parents, teachers, and local business owners, had pushed through the chaos and were now brandishing makeshift weapons. A hammer, a wooden plank, a garden shovel. "Oh, for heaven's sake," the man muttered, his face taut. "Hold your ground." Jack shouted once more, adrenaline flooding his veins. "This is our home, and we fight for it." But even as the words left his mouth, doubt gnawed at him. What if they were outmatched? Jack was just a man, a teacher, a friend, a neighbor. How could he lead these people against hardened security hired to enforce some twisted version of progress? The sirens grew louder, and headlights cut through the growing darkness, illuminating the determination on every face. Jack turned to see police vehicles pulling up, red and blue lights flashing, cutting through the haze of fear. "What is happening?" a tall officer shouted as he climbed out of his car, taking in the scene of chaos. "The people of Maplewood are being threatened," Jack yelled back, stepping forward. "They want to take our home away." The officer's expression shifted, concern etching lines into his brow. He glanced at the suits, who now wore the look of animals cornered. "Is that true?" the officer demanded, his hand resting on his belt. "You need to step aside. This situation can escalate quickly." Jack opened his mouth to respond, ready to fight for every word. Before he could speak, the woman in the suit stepped closer, a predatory glint in her eye. "We have everything we need, officer. This is a simple case of property litigation. There's nothing to see here." "Not in my town," the officer replied sharply. Jack felt a surge of hope. Maybe they weren't alone after all. But as he looked around, he noticed the crowd was restless, eyes darting this way and that. Deep down, Jack knew they couldn't rely solely on the police. They had to take a stand together. "Stay strong, everyone," he called out, summoning every ounce of courage. "This isn't just about tonight, it's about our future. We will not give in. We have a right to be heard." The officer nodded, stepping closer to Jack. "I might be able to delay their plans a little while, but we need to make sure we do this the right way." But just as they began to strategize, a piercing sound echoed from the shadows behind the suits, a shattering glass. The crowd gasped, heads whipping around to the source, tension crackling in the air. "What was that?" Mia whispered, her hand gripping Jack's arm tightly. "Something's coming," he murmured, unease settling in. "And I don't think it's good." In that silent moment, as everyone braced for the unknown, Jack felt the ground shifting beneath him, like a raging storm about to unleash its fury. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it together. Jack turned back to the four intruders, determination etched on his face. "Whatever happens next, we stand as one." Just then, footsteps thudded behind him, urgent and heavy, as if they were a mantra of the chaos to rise. Who else was approaching? Was it friend or foe? The moment was hanging by a thread, and Jack could feel a new wave of fear creeping in. What might happen when the dust settled? The footsteps grew louder, the gravel crunching beneath heavy boots. The crowd collectively held its breath, the tension mounting like a twisted coil about to snap. "Jack!" A familiar voice called through the clamor. It was Andy, one of the town's mechanics, running toward them, his shirt plastered with sweat and dirt from the long day at work. "I rounded up more of us. We can't let them take what's ours." Behind him, a handful of other townsfolk appeared. They were weary but resolute, their makeshift weapons raised high. Jack felt a surge of relief wash over him. They were gathering strength. This battle was no longer just the fight of a few, it belonged to everyone. "Okay, listen up," Jack shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We need a plan. Fire up that courage. If they think they can just walk in here and take what we've built, they have another thing coming." The crowd roared, unfurling their fears into shouts of defiance. Underneath that cacophony, Jack could hear the tremble in Mia's voice. "But what if they really come after us? What do we do then?" "We stand together," he yelled back at her, locking eyes. The fire in his heart pushed aside every doubt. We need to show them Maplewood is more than bricks and mortar. This is family, this is home. But uncertainty still curled at the edges of Jack's resolve. As he scanned the faces of the crowd, he recognized their trust. He couldn't let them down. Not now. Just then, the icy woman in the suit stepped forward. Her face was a mask of condescension. I see you've gathered the locals. How quaint, she sneered. But this is a court matter, not a playground for your little theatrics. Enough. The police officer interjected, stepping between the suits and the crowd. You've got a right to your property, but you also need to respect the people living here. You do realize what you're up against, right? The woman's expression flickered, a sign of doubt or perhaps fear. She glanced at the guards, who shifted uneasily, their bravado crumbling under the weight of the growing crowd. This unexpected show of unity was a threat. Jack could see it. Make no mistake, she said, her voice smooth but edged with an underlying menace. You can't win. We will take what we need. This town will become development, progress. Jack swallowed hard. Not at the cost of our community. He felt the energy of his neighbors pushing against him, urging him on. We won't let you tear us apart. But then the sound of more breaking glass shattered the moment. It came from the direction of the depot. Jack's heart sank. What was happening? Was it just a distraction? Or were their fears coming to life? An explosion of motion behind Jack sent him spinning around. More townsfolk were entering the fray, but trailing behind them were a couple of reporters, cameras at the ready, eager to capture the standoff. He felt a wave of panic engulf him. What have you gotten us into? He thought. Schemes of public relations and media empowerment were spiraling in his mind. If this escalated on camera, get back. The officer barked as people surged forward, pushing to form a wall between the suits and the entrance. As the tension reached its peak, Jack's mind raced. He needed to control the narrative, to show everyone what Maplewood truly stood for. But the threat from the suits remained ominous and strong. He was about to ask for everyone's attention when a voice pierced through the din. Jack. It was Mia, her eyes wide with panic. Look over there. He followed her gaze, spotting shadows moving in the darkness beyond the headlights. Jack's breath caught. If this was anything more than another local rally, they could be in real danger. His thoughts raced. Who was coming? What did they want? Could they really be banding together as one? Or would the heart of Maplewood fracture tonight? Uncertainty took hold as the darkness loomed closer, thick with menace. Jack felt the pulse of the moment, the future of his town teetering on the edge. It was time to stand firm, but could they withstand the waves crashing against them? What awaited them when the first shadow crossed into the light? Jack's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The shadows grew larger, merging into a figure that stepped into the harsh glare of the lights. Jack squinted, trying to make sense of the outline. Who the hell is that? Andy murmured, a knot tightening in his throat. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves. Mia tightened her grip on Jack's arm, her fear palpable. Please, tell me that's not what I think it is. The figure stepped forward, revealing a tall man in a weathered leather jacket, his features obscured by the brim of a worn baseball cap. Jack's instincts screamed at him stranger, danger. But a closer inspection revealed an emotion he had hoped to see. Determination. Jack. The man shouted. His voice carried through the night air. I'm here to help. Who are you? Jack called out, adrenaline fueling his curiosity. The crowd quieted, tension pressing between them and the newcomer. I'm Ben, he replied, stepping closer. I've been listening to everything that's been happening in Maplewood. I saw the news reports, and I couldn't just stand by. What do you mean? You think you can just walk in here? The icy woman challenged, her eyes narrowing at Ben. Her composure seemed to falter just slightly. You're one of them. No, he shot back, lifting his chin defiantly. I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to stand by you. A ripple of murmurs flowed through the crowd. Some faces softened while others remained skeptical. Jack felt a mix of curiosity and caution. He needed to know more. Why should we trust you? Jack asked, still clutching at the fragile thread of hope. Because I know the struggles you're facing. I tried to warn others in my industry that steamrolling over small towns isn't the answer. But they won't listen. I want to help you fight back. He looked sincere, Yet Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they might be stepping into a pit filled with echoes of betrayal. Behind Ben, the shadows shifted again. More figures emerged, this time holding makeshift signs that read "Save Maplewood" and "Community over Corporate." Ben turned his gaze to the newcomers, a flicker of relief on his face. "See?" he urged, motioning to the crowd growing at his back. "We're not alone in this fight." Jack's heart swelled and sank. Could this really be happening? More people gathering in solidarity? This was what they needed, a spark to reignite their passion. But was it enough? "Okay," Jack called out, raising his voice above the rumble of emotions. "If we're going to turn the tide, we need to know what you can offer us." Ben nodded, stepping forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "I have contacts, resources, and strategies that can help bring the fight to them. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about standing against a system that thrives on destroying communities like yours." The crowd buzzed with murmurs of hope and disbelief. Jack felt a flicker of possibility ignite in his chest. Could this be the turning point they were waiting for? Mia looked at Jack, her eyes searching for a sign. "What do you think?" she asked, an edge of hope threading through her voice. Jack took a deep breath, glancing around at the faces of his neighbors, the embers of unity sparking against the gathering darkness. "We can't let fear rule us," he said, determination setting his voice steady. "We stand together." Before he could continue, the icy woman cut in. Her poised facade cracked, a coil of frustration in her voice. "This is just a diversion. You'll regret trusting him." Jack could feel the tension ramping up again, but the heat of rebellion was warming them from within. He glanced back at Ben, whose demeanor remained uncompromising. "Tell me more, Ben. What's the plan?" As Ben began detailing his strategies, Jack realized they were on the brink of something much bigger than a town meeting. A sense of purpose was swelling in him, a growing flame against the darkening night. But just as they began to form a plan, the sound of sirens echoed from a distance, slicing through the hopes that had just begun to bloom. "Get ready!" Jack shouted, panic surging. "We need to prepare ourselves." As the sirens grew louder, Jack couldn't help but wonder, was this the moment that would define them? Would they truly come together to protect their home? Or was the fight just beginning? The shadows of doubt loomed larger than ever, and the night sky felt heavy with foreboding. What awaited them as the sirens got closer? The sirens blared louder, pulsating the heart of Maplewood with urgency. Jack felt the gathered townsfolk shift, wavering on the precipice of fear and determination. It was a thin line, but as he looked around at the faces he knew so well, a profound resolve ignited within him. This wasn't just about land or property. This fight was about heart, about home. "Listen," Jack called, his voice steadying the tremors in his gut. "They want to take away everything we've built here. But together, we can make them see. This is our town, our fight. We stand united." "Right," Mia echoed, her hand raised high, the embers of rebellion lighting her eyes. "We can't let them win." Behind them, the line of new supporters, Ben and his group nodded, bolstering their strength. Jack could feel the energy shifting, could see the weary, worried faces hardening into something fierce. The icy woman was now looking downright furious, but the police officer stepped back, sensing the tide was turning. "This might not be the best time to engage with outsiders, folks," he advised. "You should listen to reason." "What's reasonable about ripping apart a community?" Jack challenged, his heart racing. "These folks are here to support us. This is bigger than all of us. It's about defending what matters." His words hung heavy in the air. One of the officers, a younger man with kind eyes, interjected, "If we're going to do this, let us do it right. But we need to be careful. Tensions are high." As the sirens drew closer, a line of police vehicles pulled to the side of the road, red and blue lights flickering in a dance of urgency and chaos. Jack felt the pressure thickening. They could not back down now. They had created a momentum. "Let us stand together," Ben urged, raising his voice to rally the crowd. "We've got the numbers. If we approach this together, they can't ignore us." The crowd surged forward with renewed energy, forming a wall between the suits and their increasingly anxious town. Jack stepped forward with a jolt of determination. "This is our home. You don't get to take what isn't yours." The suits exchanged glances, their bravado starting to slip. Jack could feel their confidence fraying. Enough! The icy woman shouted, her voice echoing across the parking lot. You're wasting our time with your theatrics. This is not a negotiation. But it will be if we want it to be. Jack countered. Every ounce of hope and anger swirled in his chest. You can't just come in and bulldoze our lives. We will be heard, and we will not back down. From behind, the crowd roared in agreement. Each face reflected fear transformed into rage. Even the officer maintained a careful distance, observing the disintegration of authority as courage stirred in the hearts of Maplewood. We'll hold this ground, Ben nodded, gripping a nearby wooden bat, his expression uncompromising. This is about saving our community, and we're ready to fight. You can't push us around. Just as the tension reached its peak, the police sergeant stepped forward. Everyone, I understand the urgency, but let us keep this civil. Fighting won't solve anything. Jack shot Ben a glance. Should they force the issue? Was it time for a standoff? Just when he thought chaos would reign, clarity struck. In that case, Jack declared, lowering his voice to an urgent whisper, letting it carry on the wind. Why don't we negotiate together? Give us a voice at the table, or hear our demands before we let this escalate further. Wide-eyed, the suits exchanged glances, perhaps for the first time calculating the weight of the crowd behind them. The townsfolk pressed closer, fostering a sense of unity, chanting for their home. The icy woman pursed her lips but seemed to consider. This isn't your concern, officer. We are handling this matter. But Jack stepped forward again. If we're going to fix this, we must involve the town. We will hold a town meeting, right now, in front of everyone. Transparency isn't a suggestion. It's a necessity if you want us to believe you're not just here to bulldoze over Maplewood. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Ben's face, and Jack realized they were challenging the corporate giants. This time, they had all the townsfolk's power behind them. Fine, the icy woman finally spat. But understand this isn't an invitation. We have essential matters to discuss. Then let us have that discussion. Jack seethed, heart pounding, the weight of the moment pressing against him. If they could achieve a dialogue, perhaps they could grab hold of their future. Gather around, the officer shouted, as the crowd shuffled forward, the flames of hope reigniting. As they organized into a circle, Jack felt the momentum shifting. They were aligning with shared intent. We will stand together against division, against fear, he called, locking eyes with familiar faces, the faces that made Maplewood home. Let us show them what unity looks like. As the wind howled, pushing back against the tide, Jack stood resilient, holding tight to the power of their shared resolve. They may have been under siege, but it was their fight, their community, and together they would face whatever was coming. The sirens rang louder, a clarion call, and for the first time, hope shimmered in the air. This was the beginning of their transformation. They were more than neighbors. They were family, ready to stand and fight for their beloved Maplewood. As they began to voice their fears and aspirations, Jack realized sometimes it takes a storm to bring a community together. And now, they were ready to weather it. Before them lay the unknown, but together, they could face anything. This was only the beginning. A new chapter awaited, and they weren't backing down. It was time to rise. Now is the moment you need to make a choice. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on everything that's coming next. Show your support now by hitting that like button to feed the algorithm. Don't stop there. Comment below with your feelings about the battle, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation and resilience. You need to stand with Maplewood. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Let us make this movement roar.